Automatic cars feel effortless until silent habits you never think about start destroying them from the inside out. The scary part? Most drivers don't even realize they're making these mistakes daily. Today, I'll expose 21 hidden habits quietly shortening your car's life. Ignore them, and the repair bill will hit harder than the breakdown itself. We're starting with a habit so ordinary, you won't believe it's the reason people are paying five-figure repair bills. Number 21. Mixing CVT and standard ATF. That innocent top-off at a quick lube could be the beginning of a death spiral for your transmission. CVT bottles often sit right beside regular ATF on the shelf, and when the wrong fluid goes in, the chemistry turns against you. These units rely on friction modifiers tuned for steel belts, squeezing against conical pulleys under brutal pressures. 600 to 800 pounds per square inch is normal. Dilute that formula with conventional ATF, and the belt can't grip. The computer responds by cranking up pressure, heat builds, and the fluid darkens until your CVT feels like a rubber band. Honda flatly says, do not mix HCF2 with other transmission fluids. Nissan is even harsher. NS3 only. Do not use automatic transmission fluid. Technicians who open these boxes find glazed pulley faces, blackened oil, and clutch packs cooked beyond repair. Once codes like P0746 or P0868 show up, you're often staring at a replacement that runs $3,000 to $8,000. The fix is simple. Never gamble with multi-vehicle ATF. Buy the exact OEM CVT fluid for your car and nothing else. If mixing fluids is bad, wait until you see what happens when coolant finds its way into places it was never meant to be. Number 20. Ignoring radiator heat exchanger failure. Imagine opening your hood to find your transmission fluid turned into a pink milkshake. That's what happens when the tiny metal wall inside your radiator's built-in cooler cracks and lets hot coolant invade the transmission. At first it's sneaky, a faint shudder at 25 miles per hour, a half-second delay slipping into drive. But every mile after that is clutch glue dissolving and valves gumming up. The science is brutal. Transmission clutches are hygroscopic, meaning they actually soak up water. Once coolant mixes in, the paper linings absorb it, adhesives let go, and the torque converter clutch starts to chatter. Gears magazine flatly says, once clutches are wet, there's no way to remove the contamination. Shops cutting open failed converters find the lining peeling away in sheets, exactly what Sonax warns about. You can guess the bill. A radiator swap might run under $2,000. Ignore it and you're shopping for a $4,000 to $7,000 transmission plus downtime, towing, and a rental. The smart move is dead simple. Pressure test the cooling system, check both fluids, and replace a suspect radiator before it takes the transmission with it. Number 19. Revving on a cold engine. That morning stab of the throttle might feel harmless, but it's one of the fastest ways to shave years off your powertrain. At 20 degrees Fahrenheit, your 5W30 flows more like syrup than oil. Bearings, cam lobes, and rings are running on a marginal film, and when you add revs, you multiply load before that film is ready. Tribology research shows most wear happens right at startup. Revving just pours gas on the fire. Manufacturers aren't vague. Toyota manuals literally say, do not race a cold engine. Honda echoes it. Avoid revving the engine or sudden acceleration when cold. They print that because your ECU is already managing a careful warm-up strategy, extra fuel for the catalyst, converter slip to heat ATF, and stomping the pedal just fights the software. Cold revs also sneak damage into your transmission. Torque converters won't lock until coolant reaches around 120 degrees Fahrenheit, so early revving churns heat into thick ATF and scuffs clutch linings. Add fuel dilution from rich cold starts, and your oil thins out for the next 100 miles. Skip the theatrics. Let it idle 30 seconds, then drive smoothly until temps climb. That habit saves thousands in repairs down the road. Think that's rough? The next mistake wipes out lubrication completely, and it happens while your wheels are just rolling along behind another car. Number 18. Flat towing an automatic in neutral. Dragging an automatic in neutral with the engine off might look harmless, but it's mechanical roulette. The wheels spin the output shaft, dragging gears and bushings along, while the oil pump that normally splashes everything with fluid is dead silent. No circulation means no cooling, no lubrication, and metal grinding on a thin film that vanishes in minutes. Damage can happen in a single tow, even if the car felt fine after unhooking. Manufacturers don't sugarcoat it. Ford flatly writes, "This vehicle is not approved for recreational towing." Nissan's bulletin screams, "Do not flat tow, especially for CVTs." Jeep and Ram allow it only if you set the transfer case neutral exactly as written. Miss a step and your warranty is toast. Those warnings exist because neutral isn't a magic disconnect. Planet gears still spin, converter turbines shear, and cooler loops sit idle. The aftermath is ugly. Blued bushings, seized bearings, burnt clutches, and a $4,000 to $7,000 transmission bill. The smart play is simple. Follow the book for your VIN. If it forbids 4-down, use a dolly or trailer and save yourself a nightmare. Number 17. Skipping the cooler flush after a transmission failure. Bolting in a fresh transmission without flushing its cooler is like giving someone a new heart, but leaving the old clogged arteries behind. The debris from burned clutches, varnished fluid, and shredded converter linings doesn't disappear. It sits in the cooler and lines, waiting for the first drive to send grit straight into your brand new unit. Shops that gamble to save time often end up explaining why a rebuild failed again in weeks. The mechanism is cruelly simple. A stacked plate cooler traps particles deep in narrow passages. Fire up the pump on your new transmission, and it blasts that debris right back into valves and solenoids that rely on hair-thin tolerances. Sonax tells builders that 1 quart in 20 seconds of return flow is the bare minimum. Anything less means starvation is already brewing. OEMs know it too. Subaru and Nissan tie warranty coverage directly to documented cooler flushes. The failure arc is familiar. Subtle 2 to 3 flares, converter shudder, then a hot day limp that feels like software until teardown shows blued bushings and burnt friction. The ugly part? It was preventable for a few $100s. Smart owners demand a documented flush and flow test before signing off, because skipping it can turn a $4,000 rebuild into another $4,000 repair. Before we move on, subscribe now. You'll learn car-saving tricks most owners miss. And trust me, one of these insights is cheaper than paying for a blown converter or valve body. Cooler flushes deal with old debris. The next silent killer is pure heat, locked in place the second you twist the key off. Number 16. Turning the engine off immediately after a hard drive. Kill the ignition right after a hot freeway pull, and you've just trapped fire inside your drivetrain. The oil pump stops, the coolant flow halts, and every bearing, seal, and solenoid is left soaking in the highest heat of the day. Turbochargers are the poster child. Oil that should be flowing keeps cooking in the red-hot center housing until it turns to crust. That carbon blocks passages, starves bearings, and the next time you spool up, the shaft whistles like a kettle on its way to self-destruction. Garrett, the OEM turbo giant, bluntly calls this heat soakback and warns it's a major turbo killer. They even built after-run coolant pumps into Audi and VW cars just to keep pulling heat out after shutdown. Transmissions suffer the same way. When ATF stops circulating at 240 Fahrenheit, the trapped fluid varnishes valve bodies and helps torque converter shudder arrive early. Here's the money math. A 60-second idle after a mountain grade costs nothing, while a cooked turbo runs $1,500 to $2,800, and a stressed converter adds another $1,000 or more. Let the fluids finish their job before you yank the key. Number 15. Running mismatched tires on an all-wheel drive vehicle. Think one new tire can't hurt? On AWD, it's like forcing the drivetrain to wrestle itself every mile. Even a small difference in rolling circumference tricks the system into believing one axle is always faster. That constant fight cooks center couplings, clutches, and bearings until the day you smell hot oil or see the dreaded AWD off light. Tire Rack puts it bluntly. If the coupler works 100% of the time, it overheats and fails. seconds. Mechanically, it's cruel math. A taller new tire travels farther per spin than 3 half-worn mates. Two-wheel drive shrugs it off. A WD doesn't. Its transfer case, or clutch, has to reconcile that mismatch constantly, turning slip into heat. Subaru warns that even two 32nd-inch tread depth difference can result in severe mechanical damage. Ford manuals echo that major dissimilar sizes can kill AWD function. The repair bills aren't tire-sized either. Shaving or replacing to match costs a few hundred. Ignoring it means a $2,000 to $4,000 transfer case or clutch pack. If you own AWD, the cheapest insurance you'll ever buy is a matched set. Same brand, same model, same depth. Tires fighting each other is bad enough, but the next habit has you fighting gravity with nothing but your brakes. Number 14, coasting in neutral downhill. It feels clever. Drop into neutral on a grade, let gravity take over, and imagine you're saving gas. In reality, you've just traded control for brake heat, and modern fuel injection makes the mileage myth laughable. Above idle, most cars shut the injectors completely when coasting in gear. Slip into neutral, and you're burning fuel just to idle while cooking your pads. That extra roll you sense? It's not efficiency, it's lost engine braking. Every mile per hour you let build has to be scrubbed off by the brakes, and enough heat makes them smell, fade, and go spongy. Mountain pass horror stories usually start here. Shiny blue rotors, long pedal, and no stopping power when you need it most. The re-entry to drive is no gift either. Re-engaging at road speed forces clutch packs to bite harder than designed, which shows up as the occasional harsh thunk. Do it often enough, and you'll stress mounts and friction surfaces. Manuals from Hyundai to Toyota warn against neutral while moving for exactly this reason. The simple fix: stay in gear, use lower ranges on descents, and let the car's own DFCO and engine drag keep you safe, cool, and out of the brake shop. Number 13, overfilling the transmission. A quart too much fluid can sound harmless, but in a modern automatic, it's like shaking a soda can and then asking it to hold pressure. When the level rides above the spec line, rotating parts churn the oil into foam. Hydraulic pressure collapses, heat climbs, and clutches start slipping while you wonder why your brand new service made it worse. The signs creep in quietly. A soft flare on an upshift, a faint shudder around 40 miles per hour when the torque converter clutch tries to lock, or a delayed drive engagement after backing out of a space. Techs know that foamy fluid won't carry heat or clamp friction properly, and Ford's 10-speed is notorious for venting hot ATF if even 1 quart over. Inside, the damage map is predictable. Aerated oil starves bearings, friction smears onto steels, and seals weep under froth pressure. Costs start at $100 for a level correction, but spiral into thousands once converters glaze and valve bodies varnish. The cure is simple and strict. Use the right fluid, set the level hot and idling by the book, and never trust just a little extra as insurance. Number 12, changing gears while still moving. That little hurry-up flick from reverse to drive while the car's still rolling feels harmless, but inside the transmission, it's like slamming a door on someone's hand. You're asking clutches, bands, or a tiny steel pawl to stop the car's motion instead of the brakes, and they were never built for that kind of shock. The damage starts small. A parking pal tooth gets chipped, leaving metal that rides the fluid into valves. A clutch pack slips for half a second, glazing its friction, and the control module quietly raises pressure to mask the slip. Do it often enough, and the just a thud you feel in the driveway becomes a chronic slam into gear. Shops see it all the time. Magnets sprinkled with steel fuzz, pawls scarred, mounts torn from torque spikes. A light service can cost $200, a valve body or clutch rebuild $4,000 to $6,000. The cure couldn't be simpler. Let the car stop, hold the brake a beat, then shift. Use the parking brake on hills. 1 second of patience saves thousands later. Slamming gears is one way to starve a transmission. Another is letting it quietly bleed itself dry under your driveway. Number 11, ignoring small transmission fluid leaks. That tiny red spot under your car isn't just old age, it's the lifeblood of your transmission bleeding out. Automatic transmission fluid isn't just oil, it's the hydraulic muscle that makes gears engage, clutches hold, and heat stay under control. Lose enough through a pan seat or cooler crimp, and suddenly your transmission is running on froth instead of fluid. The danger escalates quietly. Low fluid lets the pump suck air, pressure drops, clutches slip, and heat spikes. In hot traffic or mountain grades, that snowball snowballs fast. Seals harden, fluid turns brown, and converter clutches shudder under light throttle. What feels like a 1-second delay into drive today can be a no-move tomorrow. Shops know the trail. A damp pan gasket or ZF connector sleeve costs a few hundred to reseal. Ignore it, and you're staring at a $3,000 rebuild once burnt friction and metal load the filter. Labor rates vary from $50 to $200 an hour, so procrastination multiplies costs. The cheap insurance is boring and effective. Check for fresh stains. Insist on a hot fluid level check by procedure, and fix small leaks before they cook your clutches. Number 10. Driving through deep water. That puddle you think is ankle deep can be the one that silently kills your transmission. Just a splash past the vent or a dunked seal is enough for water to mix with transmission fluid, and once it does, that bright red ATF turns into a pink milkshake that can destroy clutches within hours. The chemistry is brutal. Transmission clutches are made with friction facings that actually soak up water, pushing out oil and breaking down adhesives. Less than an ounce can start the process, and once those plates drink it in, there's no flushing it back out. The only cure is a rebuild or replacement. Shops call it toast because that's exactly what it is. The costs aren't small either. A few drain and fills may buy time if caught instantly, but most drivers don't notice until the car slips, shudders, or refuses to engage gear. By then, you're looking at $2,500 to $7,000 for a rebuild or remain unit, often with a new radiator or cooler if coolant contamination caused it. The fix is free. Avoid floodwater. If you did cross, check your ATF immediately. Cloudy pink fluid means act now, not later. If floodwater can ruin hardware, outdated software can finish the job without ever opening the hood. Number 9. Skipping TCM or PCM software updates. It's easy to shrug off software updates because the car still drives, but that's like running old firmware on life support. You're forcing the transmission to play with a bad playbook. Outdated maps mistime clutch applies, mishandle torque converter lockup, and let pressure spike or sag. The result isn't theory. It's the light throttle shudder at 35 miles per hour or the harsh 2 to 3 shift that feels like a bad motor mount. Manufacturers know it, which is why Ford, GM, Honda, and Nissan all issued bulletins to fix sloppy shifts and converter shudder with updated calibrations. GM's 8-speed shudder even comes with a rumble strip test at 122 to 158 degree Fahrenheit to confirm software-driven converter slip. Honda tells owners to expect about 500 miles of relearn after a ZF 9-speed update, and Ford's 10-speed keeps getting revised because the adaptive logic was teaching itself the wrong lessons. Here's the cruel math. A reflash typically costs $80 to $250. Ignore it, and you could be staring at a 4-figure torque converter swap or valve body overhaul. Updating today keeps tomorrow's rebuild off the table. Number 8. Parking without the handbrake. That click into park feels final, but relying on it alone is like balancing a truck on a paperclip. Inside your transmission, a tiny steel pawl wedges into a notched wheel when you shift into park. It's designed to hold a car that's already stopped, not to catch a 2-ton SUV rolling into a driveway slope every night. Skip the handbrake and gravity transfers the vehicle's weight straight onto that pawl. That's why you sometimes hear a loud clack when you release the brake, or why the shifter feels jammed the next morning. That's torque lock, the pawl pinched so tight against the gear that you have to yank it free. Mechanics see pawl teeth mushroomed, pivots worn, and springs fatigued, all because drivers let park do a brake's job. The math is brutal. Replacing a pawl might start near $500, but because it requires tearing down the transmission, most shops quote thousands for a rebuild. The fix is free. Use the parking brake first, then shift into park. It takes 1 second and saves your gearbox years. That tiny click in park isn't the only setup for disaster. The next mistake happens before you even leave the shop. Number 7. Skipping quick learn after service. A fresh rebuild or valve body swap without a quick learn is like teaching your kid to drive using last year's glasses prescription. The transmission still moves, but the control module is working off clutch fill numbers that fit the old worn unit. The result isn't a break-in period, it's flares, bangs, and shudder that punish brand new parts. Here's the trick in plain English. Every automatic learns how long and how much fluid each clutch needs to bite. Those saved values, called clutch volume indexes, are its cheat sheet. When you change hardware, the cheat sheet goes wrong. The TCM thinks a clutch needs 140 milliseconds when the rebuilt pack actually kisses at 90. That mismatch turns into delayed engagement, a harsh slam, or that dreaded low-speed rumble between 25 and 45 miles per hour. The cure is baked into factory tools. rules. GM calls it fast learn, FCA calls it quick learn. Nissan requires a calibration right. It takes minutes in the bay, costs around $100 to $200, and saves you from cooking clutches into a $4,000 rebuild. Number 6. Neglecting transmission fluid changes. Think of transmission fluid as both the blood and the brain juice of your gearbox. Let it age too long, and you're driving on overheated, thinned-out sludge that can't cool, lubricate, or control clutches the way the engineers intended. The car still shifts fine until one day it doesn't, and the bill looks like a down payment on a house. Inside, fresh ATF keeps clutch packs gripping cleanly, valves sliding smoothly, and heat moving into the cooler. Once it's cooked past 240° Fahrenheit, the additives break down, varnish coats passages, and seals harden. That's why the first symptom is often a faint shudder at 40 miles per hour, or a flare that feels like the engine revs free for a split second. Lifetime fluid? That's marketing. ZF, who builds the 8-speed in BMWs and Jeeps, says 50,000 to 75,000 miles. GM had to rewrite history when its 8-speed shutter fix turned out to be nothing more than flushing with the correct fluid. Spend $200 on a proper service now, or spend $3,500 on a rebuild later. It really is that simple. You'd think fluid is the only thing that breaks down with age, but the next one proves even voltage can cook a gearbox. Number 5. Driving with a weak alternator. A tired alternator doesn't just dim your headlights, it slowly scrambles your transmission's brain. The battery smooths things for a while, but once voltage dips into the 11s, or dirty AC ripple leaks past a bad diode, solenoids stop pulsing cleanly and clutches start slipping. Think of each solenoid as a tiny electromagnet moving valves thousands of times a minute. Feed it weak, noisy power, and it jitters instead of sweeping smoothly. That jitter adds milliseconds to clutch fill, throws off torque converter lockup, and makes shifts feel lazy or harsh at random. Add a summer night with AC, lights, and fans, and the box may dump into limp mode just to save itself. The fix is routine electrical care. A proper load test and ripple check costs about $150. Catch it there, or let it fester into $3,000 clutch and converter repairs. Number 4. Ignoring dashboard warning lights. Those little icons aren't decorations. They're the last line between you and a 4-figure meltdown. A red oil pressure light means the crank is running dry, and every second you keep driving is metal grinding metal. Toyota's manual literally says, immediately stop the vehicle in a safe place. They're not kidding. Heat warnings are just as brutal. Chrysler's recall letter admitted driving with a hot oil warning could boil ATF onto hot parts and even cause a fire. CVTs go into power-reduced mode on climbs or hot days to save themselves. Ignore it, and you'll smell burnt fluid and end up with glazed clutches. And that flashing check engine light, that's unburned fuel cooking the catalytic converter. Keep driving, and you're buying a $1,500 to $4,000 cat. The smartest move is cheap. Pull over for red or flashing lights, scan early, and fix the root cause. We're closing in on the worst of them. But before the ending reveal, meet the habit that ruins cars faster than dirt ever could. Number 3. Pressure washing the engine bay. Blasting your engine bay with a pressure washer feels satisfying until the repair bills roll in. That jet isn't just water, it's force strong enough to shove moisture past seals, into vents, and straight through connectors that were only designed for rain, not a nozzle inches away. Honda flat out says, don't do it. Toyota warns it can even trigger fires. They're not being dramatic. Ignition coils short out when plug wells fill with water. Alternators fry when jets hit slip rings. And transmission vents can suck in enough moisture to turn bright red ATF into pink milkshake. Once water contaminates clutches, you're staring down shudder, limp mode, or a rebuild. Shops see the same script. Arc tracks on coils, corroded mechatronic pins, and bearings streaked with rust days after a wash. Saving a few minutes with a wand can cost you $900 for an alternator or $5,000 for a mechatronic. Number 2. Hard launches. Slamming the gas from a dead stop feels fun, but it's the fastest way to cook a transmission in silence. That instant torque spike doesn't just move the car, it hammers gears, clutches, mounts, and floods the torque converter converter with heat before it even locks. Builders say the combo of shock plus heat is what quietly destroys units long before they fail. You don't notice it during the launch. The symptom shows up later, a faint rumble strip vibration at 30 to 50 miles per hour, or a flare where revs jump before a shift. That's the torque converter clutch chattering on burnt fluid. GM admitted this on its 8 speeds. Their fix was simply swapping the old fill for a new spec fluid. Ignore the warnings, and it escalates fast. Fluid turns brown, clutches glaze, overdrive packs warp, and rebuilds climb into the $3,000 to $5,000 range. Number 1. Skipping regular maintenance. Neglecting small, boring services is like letting termites chew at your house. You don't see the damage until it caves in. Old fluid loses its friction chemistry, filters clog, and seals harden, so the transmission works hotter and dirtier until one hill, one traffic jam, or one summer trip pushes it over the edge. That's when shudder, flare, or limp mode suddenly appear. Heat and contamination are the killers. A TF that's oxidized or loaded with clutch dust won't carry pressure cleanly, so valves stick and pumps cavitate. Builders say every 20° Fahrenheit increase above the safe window roughly doubles the fluid's aging rate. That's why a week of hard, hot driving can undo months of normal life. The cost spread is brutal. A timely $300 fluid and filter service saves thousands. Skip it long enough, and you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000 rebuilds or entire CVT replacements. Now that you know these hidden habits that silently destroy automatics, don't miss the next big reveal. 17 hidden car parts that fail quietly and then cost you thousands. Click now and stay ahead.